Hello and welcome to the Connectors Pulse. I'm Christine Lavopa, your host. I have so much great news for you. So today is the last day of the Connectors Pulse, and I have to say, what a journey it has been. I want to thank everybody for coming on, all the guests we have, but especially you for sitting here, for watching. Even if you can't be live, people watch it over and over again. And I'll be honest with you, the Connectors Pulse wasn't even on my radar. It was something that, my partner Jesse and I decided to do because we wanted to really raise awareness for our retreat. But I have to say that working with Jesse has been amazing in many ways. And if you are looking for a live stream, if you are looking to enhance your brand and really connect with people, I highly recommend Jessie Lizak and also reventing.com and her team, because they made all of this possible. So I want to do a special thank you to Jessie and her team, but this has been an incredible journey, and I get to hype up women, and they have opened up the Connectors Pulse, and we started with 2 shows, and we had to open up more slots because so many people wanted to come on, which makes my heart warm, because that's just more people that we can reach, more people we can bring awareness to. But I also get the privilege to hype other women up, and that is such a privilege that I'm grateful for. So thank you all. I just wanted to start with that. And if you're looking for that live stream, reventing.com. It's worth it. It's worth the investment. And you get to really connect with people you've never thought that you connect with before, which leads me to my guest, Ashley René. And we are going to introduce her. She is a rock star. So welcome, Ashley.
Hi.
Hello. And it's pixels over presence, right?
Presence.
It's over pixels.
Yeah.
I got it back. See that? Too much reading. I am a little bit dyslexic today, so just don't mind me. We're in like different time zones. My body's like, where are we right now? I'm supposed to be in the East Coast, but I'm not. And then they did a time change, so now we're 5 hours instead of 6. Anyway, I digress. Ashley René, please tell us. I mean, we had such a connection backstage, and I want you to share everything that you shared with me. Like, what brought you to your here and now?
Yes. So, hi, I'm Ashley René, and I founded Presence Over Pixels last year after I lost my job working corporate for like 15 years, took a contract job. The contract ended, and I was like, you know what? I wrote a book about 10 years ago now, and it was about networking, and I really enjoyed it. And like with the book, I also did speaking engagements, and I enjoyed that connection piece. And so I told my husband, I was like, babe, like, what if like you hold it down for a minute? And I tried that again because it was fun and it was effective. And he was like, okay, I'll take a chance on you. I'm like, okay, yay. And so that's how I started Presence Over Pixels. It started in a different way and has evolved like over the past year. But kind of like the major catalyst was the fact that like my husband is a towboat captain. So he'd be gone for a month and then home for a month. And then when he'd come home, he'd sit on his phone like while I was talking with him. I'm like, but I'm here. Pay attention to me.
I can relate.
I think everyone can.
So I totally can relate to that. Yes.
It doesn't feel good. And then I went to like my son's show. He's in a choir, and there were people, instead of like paying attention to the show, they were recording the show the entire time. Yeah. And it was like obstructing view. And then I'd go out to eat and of course see people on their phones, and instead of paying attention with each other, I'm like, this is problematic. Mm-hmm. And that feeling that I had like that 10 years ago of, connecting with people, I was like, what if I could figure out like a way to get people to get off of their phones? Because that was an issue that I was already like cognizant and aware of it. And my boys, who are, I have a 23-year-old and a 17-year-old, like,
no way.
They don't have like, they're not always on their phone. So I knew that the way that I raised them up was effective in, keeping that balance. So that's a long story for how like Presence Over Pixels got started.
We love a long story. And of course it's called Presence Over Pixels. I don't know why I said that backwards, because that makes a lot more sense than Pixels Over Presence. Hello. Wherever we're human.
You're going back and forth. You're still finishing up with your milk tea. So.
Are you okay. I mean, I'm not, I was trying to do the time change. I'm like, I'm not mathing in public right now because it's just not good. But I can totally resonate. One, my husband's in the Navy, and we are in sea duty. So sea duty is like 6 months in, 2 months, 6 months out, 2 months in. And it changes a lot. So there's a lot of inconsistencies, but you do a lot on your own. So I could imagine that type of lifestyle is there's a lot of similarities in what you go through. And it's hard when they get back. The reintegration is very hard. And, we have come to an agreement that I'm never going to understand his stress and he's not ever going to understand my stress. So instead of having a stress contest to see who's more competitive about who's more stressed out, let's just come to an agreement that we're both stressed, but we both need to be present.
Yeah. Yes.
So, I think it's really important to understand where each other are at a certain time, and how you can kind of download without the technology together. So I think that that's very important. And also, can we close out the tabs? I told Jessie this weekend, every time a tab would reopen, I go, squirrel. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's just a tab opening. That's just my distraction, right? So, which we will go into our first topic because I think it's going to tie in perfectly, which is how constant connection harms our health and fuels burnout. Okay, so we talked about this backstage, that burnout is the new buzzword, squirrel. So let's hear your take on why constant connection harms our health.
Yeah. So it comes down to science. Now, full disclosure, I'm not a scientist. However, I am deeply committed to this work. And so I read a lot of research articles from people who are doing the active research. And there's research to support that our brains are just not designed to be constantly on. Our brains actually use a lot of calories to do the work that it does just naturally in baseline. So when we're constantly feeding into it, we're not giving our brain an opportunity to take a break. And so then in turn breaks. And how that ends up looking varies from person to person, depending on like what the triggering event was. But it shows up by us being perpetually angry. It shows up by us, being like just on edge and easily triggered by like little things. It shows up by our work not being top notch because we become more prone to mistakes. It shows up by having strong emotions like crying and, sadness, but not being able to connect the dots as to why we're feeling that way. And it's because our brain is tired and can't function. Our brains are constantly taking in information and we don't even recognize it. If our brain filters it through active memory, and then the next phase is that long-term memory to then decide, okay, do I keep this? Do I, what am I going to do with it? So when we are always scrolling and we keep opening up the tabs, we can't let our brain process that information fluidly enough to decide what to do. And so then it just creates chaos and it's just like, I'm done. We're done.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what it looks like and how it happens.
I love that you said that because I think, we said this during the retreat too, I can't believe it's been 5 years since COVID, right? And that was such an intense time for so much. And what we have learned through that, yes, I always say, without being insensitive to people and what they went through during COVID, COVID was the best thing that could have happened for my career because now I'm digital. Now I can be global, right? Yeah. But at the same time, we also have to recognize how much we needed connection and not the technology connection, like tactile human connection. And that's what we knew. I mean, we need community, we need people. I mean, we survive off that and we thrive off that. And I think that once technology kind of takes over, technology, just like AI, I feel is a good enhancement, but it can't take the place of.
Yes.
So same thing like supplements. Yes. Like always people are like, oh, I have all these supplements. I'm like, okay, well, are you getting your nutrition so your body can absorb this, right? Supplements are there, but if you're looking at a pyramid, supplements going to be like that 5 to 7%. You need to get good nutrition, take care of your health, and nutrition and workouts are only one chapter each.
Yeah.
You need to fill the story, stress management, connection, networking. There's so many different types of wealth: emotional health, wealth, social wealth, physical wealth. There's so many things that we need to kind of look at to be holistic instead of just pinpointing and just doing one well, because then everything else falls to the wayside.
Absolutely. Yeah, and part of this work, what I've created is called the 5 presence zones. And these are 5 areas in our lives that I've observed get impacted the most when we stay on our phones. And you've touched on several of them. So one is personal relationships. So like when we stay on our phones too much and we're not present in that moment, whether it's at work or at home, our personal relationships are going to suffer. Mental health, like I mentioned, the anxiety, there's doom scrolling is a new term in our lexicon. It refers to when we're scrolling and by the end of it, we are just so filled with, anxiety and sadness. That is an effect on our mental health. Then also with our physical health, right? So I went to the chiropractor recently because I have a shoulder injury and they did an x-ray and I have, sadly enough, some degeneration in my neck up here. And I was like, no way, because like I'm 41. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, but also I'm 41. So I put in some work in this body. But
I'll be 45 in June, so I get it. I get it.
We have earned our stripes. And we both look amazing.
I am vintage. Thank you. Yes.
But they're 10-year-olds. Christine, they're getting 10-year-olds in their office with degeneration in their necks. And it's because the kids are on their phone. Yes. And at 10, they might not, they can still recover. But then by the time they're 20, like they actually are seeing patients in their office that have such severe degeneration that it's requiring surgery or pain medication in order to rectify. And cell phones haven't even been around that long. So yeah, and then physical health, and then also self-care is like when we choose to not sleep because we just want to keep mindlessly scrolling. And then just personal responsibilities too. Like I'm guilty of it. I'm supposed to be like cleaning or working on a project, but I go and scroll and do something.
Scrolling is the ultimate squirrel.
Yes.
It's a great, so when people think also, I have a lot of clients that work from home, right? Or they travel a lot, and working from home and working out at home or doing a lot of things from home, so the lines are blurred, right? And when I work with mainly type A driven people. So we are very good at telling a story and believing it and not trying to get outside of the storyline. It's our truth. It doesn't mean it's the truth. Right. And a lot of the times when we say, oh, I'll do it later, I'll have the equipment at home, you don't work out at home because you're doing everything from home and there's no separation, right? Yeah. And for me, I worked out at home for like 5 years when I was a stay-at-home mom and trying to start my business after, multiple deployments and all this stuff. So working out at home was a necessity, but now I split it up. So I'll work out at the gym or I'll work at home because I never want to get comfortable just doing one thing. When deployment season's here or PCS season means you're going to move, I know that I'm probably not going to be at a gym. So I have to get out of my head that I can only do movement outside the gym. Also, it's not just about looking good in a bathing suit, right? It's about my mental health. When I don't move, my mental health suffers. And there was a study, I can't name exactly what it was. I should have, but it was just this off the cuff, done on children. And one of them is that they just focused on academics and they took out physical activity for the whole day. Just focus on academics and see what their grades were. Then they took another, pod of children and they put physical activity first and then academics later. Can I tell you guess who the ones that actually did better in academics?
Was it the physical fitness folks?
Physical activity.
Yeah.
So that goes to show you it's not just for, keeping your body, keeping it tight, keeping it right. It's really for the mental health. There's also studies done on women that are in their pregnancies. When they work out, it actually helps with the brain development for your baby. So there's a mind-body connection. You're actually passing on your good chemicals, your, those good hormones to your baby too. And you get that brain development. So movement is great for looking good in a bikini. Okay, great for looking good in a bathing suit, but that's like the side product for taking care of your health. Let's look at the long game, the longevity. And I think that connection is part of that. Would you say?
Absolutely. There have been a lot of studies also. There's an organization called Blue Zones. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they study globally different parts of the world who have long lives. And they dive deep. Hi, Katie. Thank you for joining. They dive deep into why they have such long lives. And one of the consistent things is always connection. Whether it is,
I think I saw a documentary on that actually.
I think Okinawa, Japan is one of those places. They're deeply connected with one another, and they have a sense of community. Similar to I believe how that physical activity influences the brain's ability to process things cognitively more clearer. I think it's the same thing with connection. When we have connection, our brains can process things more clearly because we have points of reference from different people to pull from their experiences, right? Like I had my kid at 18. I'm very thankful for my baby, but that experience was difficult. And so when I meet other people who are younger women who might be a single parent or who might not have it, I can share my story and my experience without them having that experience, right? And now that makes their life differently. They can look at things differently without having that. So that's what connection does. It allows us to borrow the experiences of other people to enrich our storyline and give us new points of reference without necessarily having to have that experience, right? Connection is really important. It was cool too. This past Saturday, I did a talk, and with one of the activity, and it was with computer folks. They work alone a lot, and they're known for not, putting themselves out there. So one of the activities that we did, because it was about putting the human back in a digital first world. And the activity that we did, they had a die, and each part of the die represented a conversation topic. And they partnered up, and we did this 3 times with 3 strangers, everybody in the room. And at the end, I asked, how did that feel? It was so cool to see these honest answers from these super tech folks. Some of the words that they said, they felt more engaged. They felt hopeful, which was a really I was not expecting hopeful to come out of that. They felt energized. They felt happy. They felt enriched. So human connection is not like a nice to have. It's a must have for our mental health and for survival.
I mean, it's a non-negotiable, right? So if you were to look at the relationship between my husband and I'm a talker. He's like, I can go up 50 flights of stairs and not talk to anybody. Just stay there. And I'm like, he's like, as soon as the door's open, you're asking what they had for breakfast. And I'm just like, well, I mean, and he's like, but when it comes to Navying, he's very extroverted like that. But I think that we also just recharge differently. He is not one to love social media. And for me, I do like it, but also it's necessity from my, I'm overseas. This is how I stay connected with people in social media. It's how I market as a solopreneur. So I can understand where people recharge. But I think also what you were saying too is sharing that you had a child at 18. It's about that vulnerability that's really connecting people. And I know over this past 2 years, I recently shared my story and I admitted 2 chapters that were really prevalent in my life, but I was like, well, I can't share these. Everyone's going to judge me. Everyone's going to see my scars, trying to pull up these walls. I have the perfect life and curated everything. But meanwhile, I was leaving out major life events that actually made me who I am. And the minute I started sharing those and being more connected with people without worried about being judged, I mean, I've had clients that told me I don't think I would have worked with you if I didn't know your story.
Yeah.
So, and then I decided to like rip the Band-Aid off and tell my story on a TEDx stage. Whew, that happened 2 weeks ago. So like, no big deal.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It was wild, but like, I told myself I couldn't do it. I told myself I would never be a public speaker. I told myself I didn't have a voice, a story, a seat at the table, and I would shrink to fit a mold. And finally, I'm 44, and I'm just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Children. Am I going to just tell them to do that? And it was really just kind of breaking the cycle to be better for them, but also having that connection. If I was so stuck in my head, how could I connect with my kids?
Yeah, 1000%.
Yeah. So, and the same thing, like you said, when your husband comes back, you said he's gone for a couple months at a time.
1 month at a time, 1 month on. His job has changed within this past year, so he is home more frequently. But yeah, he'd be gone for a month and home for a month as a towboat captain.
Which is really hard. That's really hard for connection.
Yeah.
Reintegration's hard. Sometimes, we don't know what's going to happen because what happened in that month. And sometimes what happens, 6 months, 7 months down the line. So having that connection is very important, and making time for that and making it a priority. We put our phones away. Sometimes it happens that we don't, but he made a rule, and he said, hey, let's follow this rule. Let's really like own up to it, that we're just going to put our phones away, so we can have some more connection. Now, sometimes our connection is, watching a TV show together, which is not connecting, but we're together and we're, hugging each other and stuff. So, the ladies from the retreat here. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Brandy. So just having that, that retreat was all connection. We came from all walks of life, different religions, different backgrounds. We had hard conversations. We laughed, we cried, we held each other's hand, and it was fabulous because we need connection. And I think that I love that you're bringing this to light, because that's part of your health. It's part of your wellness. It's part of who we are as humans, which brings me to my next topic.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, take it away.
Yes. So it's great, because I was about to make a comment about that. So when it comes to our cell phones and being present with each other and building that connection, it really, like, setting those boundaries is very, very important, and really the only way to be successful in this space. Because think about it, like my cell phone's over here. How many times do this thing go off and then we reach for it without even thinking about it, even if we're in the middle of doing something like having a conversation with somebody? So some of the boundaries that I've used and that I teach people to use: number one, physically, exactly what you and your husband do. Place the phone in a different place, in a different room, to where it's not visible, to where it's not easily within your reach. In fact, if one of my biggest recommendations is creating a digital free zone within your home. So what a digital free zone is it says that in this space, it can be space or time, no technology is going to be used, or you can define what that technology looks like. So no cell phones. So it could be in my home, cell phones are not allowed at the dinner table. We're going to be with each other, and we're going to listen to some light jazz on Alexa or something. We're going to have a vibe together.
Yeah.
Or in the car, like, that's another great place I highly recommend, especially for people with children. Make the car a tech-free zone. If you need navigation, cool, pull it up for nav, pull it up for music. But otherwise, have conversation. Encourage children to look out the windows and to be curious about the world around them. Using the do not disturb feature on the phone. Most phones, they have do not set that up for those time periods that are sacred for you, whether it's dinner time or just waking up during sleeping time. Like, there's no reason if I send a text message to someone at 1 a.m. because I'm out listening to some good music, that person should pick up. Like, unless they're out listening to good music too. Listen to that text the next day. If you're asleep, don't feel obligated.
Yeah.
And then just, again, the communication. So, like, specifically when it comes to work, I think a lot of people, like you touched on this a little bit with your work, a lot of people feel like they have to be online and visible in order to promote. And that is not the case, especially now too, since a lot of companies are going to return to office. those in-person connections, and those are going to mean more than the digital visibility. And just the idea of digital visibility as well, as I know a lot of people, worry about that. Less than 1% of the people in the world truly need to be highly visible online. And that less than 1%, like those are the business owners, or, the people who are trying to establish themselves in a certain space. Most people don't need to post online all of the time. The evolution of social media has really changed over the past, decade and a half. When it first started, for most of us, it was just to keep in touch with people and share our lives after, moving overseas.
Yeah. MySpace.
Yes. Oh, I miss girl. I was an avid blogger on MySpace. Loved it. I felt like I could code too. But now, so then in the 2010s, it evolved to like, let me show you everything that I'm doing. And then we started to, FOMO, fear of missing out, entered into the lexicon, because now I'm seeing what everyone else is doing, but I'm not doing that. So am I behind now because I'm not doing that? Am I missing something? And so that's when we started to crank up all of the anxiety that we were feeling, and feeling like we had to post and record and tape when we went places. If a person wants to be an influencer, that's one thing, but the average person does not need to post constantly online, and even for those business owners where visibility is an important thing, time block it. Say, these are my working hours, and outside of that, I can't, I'm not going to. No one should have access to a person 24/7. And when we message someone, I'm so sorry, I did, I'm late responding. I typed my text up and didn't hit send. Okay, cool. And I get the sentiment of it, and societally, like, we've changed, like we've evolved in that. But also, no one needs access to you 24/7.
It's funny. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, my husband, my kids, that's it.
Right. So I was talking about husband, like, in his job, he's on a lot, because he's XO. So like it goes to him before it goes to CEO. And anyway, it's very high paced job. But a lot of the times too, and he'll be that mirror for me, and he'll be like, babe, is that urgent? Is everything urgent? Because that's really stressful if everything is urgent, He also likes to tell me that perfect is the enemy of good enough. So, it's like one of those things where, he'll be like, why do you have so many notifications on your phone? That would drive me nuts. And it doesn't even faze me, which is the scary part, right? That I'm just like, oh yeah, whatever, So I turned off like most of my social notifications, because I can't do it. And that's been a blessing. My Apple Watch broke. That's been a blessing, because I don't have things reminding me to do things all the time. And I think that it's really important to say to people, hey, I'll get back to you, or here are my working hours. When I was first starting off coaching, people reached me all of the time, and he would drive him. He's like, do they really need their hand held right now? And I'm just like, Anthony, I have to be there. And he's like, they're not paying you to be their therapist. He's like, they're paying you to be the coach. So there's been a lot of like connection, especially not seeing people all the time. And I would see people in person. That's a different type of connection. Right. And then when you're on all the time, it's like, how do you recharge? And then the kids come home and you're still on. So they kind of get like the nitty gritty of whatever you have left. And then if you fall asleep because you're on all the time, it's just a cycle. Or when he's away, sometimes he's like, you better get some sleep. And I'm just like, yeah, but this is it. I have an hour to myself. What do I do? Scroll, like go down the rabbit hole, find the squirrel, So it's just kind of like those things where you said you have to have boundaries, and boundaries are not, and I tell this to my clients as well, they're not always for others. You need to have boundaries with yourself, because if you don't have boundaries with yourself, how do you expect other people to have boundaries with you? Yeah. So, they hold your boundaries if you can't hold the boundaries with yourself. So I like that you brought up, I think I called it one time a digital sunset.
Oh,
where do you have a digital sunset to kind of put that aside and go into, because if you're staring at the screen, I know for me, it definitely affects my sleep or how I can fall asleep. I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
and when we think about it too, right? When the cell phone was introduced to us, it was introduced as a tool, and it still is a tool, right? The tool of when I am traveling somewhere, I can use my cell phone in case of an emergency, or in, the event that I've crossed over into a state that I'm unfamiliar with and don't have a paper map for, I can use my GPS, or I need to find information quickly. Those are the tools that are enabled, or the things that are enabled through the use of a cell phone.
mhm.
But we are still the user of the cell phone. We're still the operator, rather. Not even, I don't even like to use the word user, because when we use the word user, typically outside of computers and science, we're talking about people who are addicted to things, right?
Not a good connotation, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But big tech absolutely uses it like that, because we are like their users, because they have designed the technology in such a way that keeps us psychologically engaged from, the dopamine hits, the endless scroll of, oh, what's going to come next, the feeling of being highly educated because of this false sense of access to the information, and to people, and the sense of false connection through the internet. But like whenever, like how you mentioned your Apple Watch breaking and how that was a great thing. I had a friend got, her Facebook got hacked and she was locked out for like 2 weeks. She was like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because she wasn't, oh, I need to check,
That happened
um,
to me too. My Instagram got hacked and I was out for a month. And I
oh,
was like,
wow.
yeah, I was like, it was great, and we went on vacation. And I've always, for the past of solopreneuring, I'm like working on vacation. And I think it was last year we went away and we had no cell service. And he's like, you better not buy any cell service. I will be mad if you buy. And it was a whole week of just disconnecting to reconnect, but in a way that was helpful for, as being a family, and enjoying that time. And I remember also, to go back, squirrel, to talk about, we were at a parent teacher conference for our kindergartner at the time. And she was saying that a lot of the kindergarten, now it's kindergarten, right? So let's just take that into like connotation, and take it with a grain of salt. But she said a lot of kindergartners were having a harder time holding pencils because they were so used to scrolling, right? Or they had a lot of social emotional breakdowns because of just being on their tablet all the time. And listen, I am not going to be on my high horse or throw a stone in my glass house, because there are times when I have technology for my children, but it's times.
Yes.
And sometimes, there were times where I was like, oh, this is too much. And their relationship changed with me. They would get angry. They would get really frustrated. And, Mom, I can't believe you're taking this away from me. You don't love me anymore. And I'm just like, where did that come from? But it's you have this kind of like emotional tantrum or emotional breakdown because of the thing that's keeping you connected is also the thing that's keeping you disconnected.
Yeah. I'm
And
so glad that you brought up the kids, because there's been a lot of research on that too. So like that, I've done it before. I'm sure most people have done it, if not all. But if we have a cell phone and then we're watching like something streaming on television and we're scrolling while we're watching,
yeah,
that actually impacts our brain. And for adolescents, teenagers, it actually impacts the development of their brain,
yeah,
specifically their executive functioning development, because their brain is trying to toggle between those two activities. And like I said, our brain is always taking the information. And so at that critical developmental stage in adolescence, it's messing with that development, because the brain is, it can't figure out what to do.
developed yet, and then it's
Yes.
trying to keep up with everything. And it's hard. And I don't remember it being like this when I grew up, but I can't, like, it's like apples and steak, right? They're not the same macronutrients. So how can we compare? I did read somewhere, and like, I can't wait to believe everything you read, but I want to believe that this is true, that Gen Alpha, which is our children's generation, is actually going to be the most tech savvy, but they're also the healthiest. So they're learning to create more boundaries. They're learning to take care of their health. But, it starts with us. It does as parents, because my kids, like, they have been training with me, and it's just normal because I make it normal, and it's fun because it is fun. And my daughter can clean and press 4 pounds over her head. And with I spot her, y'all. So before you come at me with your kids can't lift weights, they climb trees. Kids move weight all the time. They carry backpacks, and it's within their range. She's 30 pounds, so she is not lifting more above her head than what she can. People have come at me sideways with that on Instagram about, how do you let your child weight train? I'm like, how would I not let her do that? Like, it's more dangerous not to show her how to do it than to just let her see that online. But also, let's take in perspective here. It's more socially acceptable for our children to be eating McDonald's or watching or scrolling than it is to train with our children.
Yeah.
Like,
100%. Yeah. We definitely have some of our priorities flipped.
And a lot of people go off of old studies. There was a study done in like 1962 with Japanese adolescents. And this was just, I'm not calling out Japanese people. I'm just saying what this particular study was done. And it was about growth plates and how you're going to stunt their growth. But that has been debunked many times. And as long as you're doing it appropriately, they're not straining themselves. That is actually very good for their growth plate, but also their bones. Because as we know, weight resistance helps us get strong, but also helps with bone health. So enough about that.
Well, as parents, it is our responsibility to teach our kids in the way that we want them to develop and to be, adult human beings.
Right.
Something that I tell all parents when I meet them, especially when they're in the young stage, when our children are of like elementary school age, they have both ears to us. They are listening to everything that we're saying, hanging on to every word, and wanting nothing more than to make us happy. And so the influence that we have is very great. And so by saying to a child, no, you can't have, get on your iPad at this time, or no, when we eat, we are eating together and having conversation or sitting in silence, like those are the rules, they're going to listen because they're in elementary school. Once they get into middle school, it becomes way more difficult because they have one ear to their parents and one ear to their friends and the rest of the world. And so you better hope that that foundation was built solid while they were in elementary school, because then by the time they get into high school, they're more independent and they can make decisions on their own. And in some countries, they can go and live on their own if they wanted to. But that foundation that we build at a young age is so important, because by the time they get to high school, if they're still under our roof, we still have some influence for them to fail safely before they get out into the real world. But yeah, that if we teach them at a young age, like my son who's 23, I remember when he was 16 and he had his first job at the YMCA. They had a Christmas party. He came back home and he was like, Mommy, it was so weird. Like, everyone sat down and they just started scrolling on their phones. My now 17-year-old, last year, he went to a Sweet 16 party. I asked him how it went. He was like, it was fun, like the first 30 minutes, Mom. But then like everyone just started scrolling Instagram afterwards. So the kids are aware, and they might be, this generation might be more physically fit, but if they don't have the social emotional, if they're unable to connect with each other, then they're just, feeling good for themselves. But feeling good is good when we're feeling good with others. And so that the physical fitness and, the digital hygiene as well, they go hand in hand for a healthy human being as an adult.
Yeah, I worked for a company called O2X, and they are, for tactical athletes, military, fire, police. They work with first responders. And I was on their team to help facilitate workshops. And I got to really meet incredible people. And I met a psychologist that worked with special operations. And this psychologist was telling me about how 7 seconds is the magic number for like Instagram. Remember, it was like the 7-second reel. And he's like, there's a science behind it. And that is less than an attention span of a goldfish. So you have 2 seconds to get people to stop scrolling and look at it, 3 seconds for it to be a view. And this might be outdated information, and then for 7 seconds, then I'm just like, 7 seconds? He's like, yeah. And we're just inundated by information all the time. And sometimes I'm like, because ADHD is so prevalent now, and it's like, okay, do I have ADHD, or is it because, and there's like, not like, I'm fascinated by learning about this, all of the things that have to do with ADD and ADHD. And as a being a parent, like watching out for signs or whatever, and they try to pinpoint boys, but they can't tell until they're 7. So like, and it's a lot of it becomes from the executive functioning, like you said. So, and in my head, I'm like, wow, maybe I just have so many tabs open that I can't close them out. And then I feel, I read these symptoms, and it's like, okay, did I just web and be myself? Like, it's just happening right now. But I do remember as a child that it was really hard for me to organize. I remember when I was in first grade, and I was at a parent teacher conference, and I sat outside, and part of the parent teacher conference, they called me in, and I was like, they're like, hey, Chris, can you just go find this piece of paper? And it was like a ball of papers inside my desk. And I was like, and like pulled it out. I'm like, this one. And I was just able to kind of like, and I feel like my brain is like, that's a ball of yarn, and I'm trying to pull out one at a time. So I had to use these holistic techniques to help myself and grow, because I was like, maybe I have a learning disability. Why am I not catching on to this? But it wasn't a thing back then,
Yeah.
And also, I don't want to be on medication. What can I do to not be on medication? I have took myself with, healthcare providers at the time, but 16 years ago, I was on Depakote, Prozac, every anti-anxiety you can think of. And I stopped feeling. And I said, I don't feel anything. This is exactly what it's supposed to do, right? Make you stop feeling or feel less. And it just numbed. And I'm like, I can't live like this. And then took myself off to everything and started adding in more holistic things like movement and nutrition and stress management and sleep, and trying to like kind of figure it all out, and haven't had to take anything in 16 years, So it's, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Thank you. I mean, it's just one of those things that you kind of like, and I'm not knocking medication.
Yeah.
It's people need medication, right? That's why it's there. I'm just saying personally for me, I wanted to feel. I'm an empath too. So like, I know how to create boundaries around feelings.
Yes.
And when you're an empath and you take in digital, you feel all of the things.
Yes. Yeah. I've had to take breaks myself. Like just because there's just so, and especially just in the climate in the world today it's a lot. And being online, even just for 2 minutes, can trigger lots of very strong emotions in a lot of different directions. And so we have to ask ourselves, before we even hop online, am I mentally, am I in a space even to process what I may see? Because it's a magic box, right? We don't know what we're going to get when we go on there. That's part of the appeal. So to your point, am I in a mental space to even be able to deal with extra stuff? And if I take that in, am I going to be able to process it in a way that is healthy for me? Or is it going to exacerbate, mental health issues or even physical issues that already exist? Because I've gotten online sometimes and, read different things, and all of a sudden like I feel it in my stomach. I get that anxiety, so all of that it's so real, and having that self-awareness of how we feel, even when we get on our phones or computers, tablets, to any type of technology, that awareness can drive our ability to be more intentional with when we use our phones and devices and how we use them as well.
I love that you brought up state of mind too. So, I know there were some times where I would take it out on maybe my husband or someone close to me if I read something that was unfavorable. And, I don't want to go down the troll thing, but that comes with the territory of being on social media platform. There's going to be people that are going to troll you. And I used to take it to heart so much. I used to just really like fester over it and or fight back with this person. And it took a lot to just kind of like block, delete, bless, block, delete. I'll pray for you, but you're not going to be able to take any of my space. And, I've had an incredible amount of support on LinkedIn, but I'll also say, and I feel like I talk about this like every time we talk to somebody, but it's been, the trolling on this platform has by far superseded Instagram and Facebook combined in the 10 years that I've been on there.
Oh,
LinkedIn has been
wow.
the worst for trolling.
Oh,
Um,
wow. That's
and
actually surprising.
it really shocks people. I think because I have a career that's not typical for LinkedIn. I'll get a lot of, I'll go back to Instagram, or you're just an influencer, or this is not the space for you, or just
Yeah.
tell me I look like a man, or, be very inappropriate with how I look. They think that they can say these things to me because they're a keyboard hero, right?
Yes. But
So
and all of that right there, exactly what you described is exactly why we need to be more intentional with being present. Because the
mhm,
more present that we are, the more that we interact, especially with people who do not share similar backgrounds as we do, the more empathetic we can be to other people's situations and ways of life.
mhm.
But if we spend so much time solely online and don't step away, then all those trolls, even if I'm not the recipient of troll abuse, I'm still reading it,
Oh yeah,
and that is going to be have a
really
residual
too.
impact
Yeah,
on me. Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, and now too with the bots that that are
yeah.
way more prevalent, and AI, like we can't even, it's difficult to tell
Well,
even
you're asking
who's
yourself, is this a real person, right?
exactly,
And Jesse
exactly.
and the ladies, Elizabeth and Brandy, I hope that you're on here. By the way, if where are you from? Can you put that in the chat? Because I always like to look at where people are from. I just squirrel moment, but I forgot to ask that before. But we talked about this particular instance on this retreat because a lot of times taking that first step is really scary because you're afraid of what people are going to think of you, right?
Mhm.
And LinkedIn is known for looky-loos, right? A lot of
Yeah,
people won't actually comment or post, but they'll look and you're like, oh, where did this person come from? But
yeah,
a lot of the times too, it's because they don't want people in their network to see if they're liking something. They may resonate with it, so they watch it, but you can't connect that to somebody liking it because now it will be in their network, right? Or
right.
commenting or something like that, which also goes to show you about the amount of trolls that are on this platform. But you can trace them back to their job, but some people just don't care. And then you're
Yeah,
asking yourself, like, where is this coming from? But you have to be okay with yourself. And if you're going into looking at your social media already feeling some type of way and salty, then you're going to find things that you
right.
might even misread. You might take out of context because you're feeling salty. I've done that before.
Yes.
This person's like, "Oh, I didn't mean it like that," and I'm just like, "Ah!" Like, relax, man. Like that. And it's hard to you take things out of context, but also like we show the highlight reel,
Right.
right? Or like, oh, let's make this a perfect curated thing. And then people are like, is that this person's real life? And,
Yeah.
when I meet people in person, I want them to know like what you see online is exactly who you're meeting in person.
Yep.
A lot of
Yeah.
times I get, wow, you're real short. I'm like, I am real short.
Sorry.
Like, but you look so, I'm like, yeah. So, but it's like one of these things where you got to practice what you preach,
Yeah,
right? And no one
exactly.
likes I don't like particularly love to be vulnerable. I feel like I'm allergic to it. It makes me feel like I'm but the more
Mm,
you do it, the more you're able to do it again. And it's like taking
yeah.
that first step, putting that first step forward is sometimes the hardest part until you gain momentum. And we talked about this a lot too. Messy action,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm sure you know a lot about that. Like, really, that's a lot to take on to be like, hey, babe, can you hold it down? Like, to come as a woman that's so independent, that's lived her life, to say to her husband, like, do you believe in me? We got to do this together. Can you hold it
Yeah.
down? Like, having that real talk and real conversation um, is huge to have
Yeah.
that connection.
Everything really does come down to communication. When it comes to connection, it boils down to communication. When it comes to forward progress, it comes down to communication. Comfortability comes down to communication. If we're not communicating, we can't let people know what makes us comfortable, what makes us uncomfortable. If we're not communicating, we can't let people know what we want, and they can't help us to try to get there. So yeah, absolutely. I'm very, very thankful that my husband, like literally last week, I did spiral. Like I had a full down breakdown last week,
Yep.
just from all of the pressures between being a mom, being a wife, being an entrepreneur. Like my son is a senior, and like he's also a high performing senior who's in theater, which requires a lot. So it's like I'm very spread thin,
Mm-hmm.
and I did not communicate my needs to the person I'm most connected with, my husband. And then when he got home, because he was out of town for work, I spiraled and completely, broke down. And he was like, "You should have come to me sooner," but I didn't. In part, I didn't realize what was happening. I didn't recognize the overwhelm until it got to that point. But yeah, no.
Sometimes you need to have the breakdown to have the breakthrough. Hopefully that's not all the time.
Yes, no. Hadn't had one of those in a very long time. So
and it's okay. It's like, okay, like I had a breakdown, like an emotional breakdown. I mean,
yeah.
Leading up to this TEDx, girl, emotional breakdown city. And the inner critic, the I can't do it. And the crazy part is that there's a part in the speech where I'm talking about the inner critic, overcoming the inner critic. Can I tell you that's the part that I could not remember? The self-sabotage isn't that ironic?
So what's funny is my breakdown happened because I gave 2 talks on Saturday, and one of them was the human in a digital world, but the other one was on cognitive load. And that was the first time that I had delivered that talk. And yep, the cognitive load was completely full. So
and that's
the irony.
right?
Both
The irony, but we got, it brings us back down to, do we practice what we preach?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, these things happen because we're human. And guess what? Like, being part of recovering anything in life doesn't mean that it just goes away. It just means that you practice it daily to get out of it. Right.
It's about progress, not perfection. Progress. I've had to learn that.
Yes. Yes. And the perfection is, this invisible, unattainable goal, because what's perfect, and we have to keep talking ourselves off the ledge, which I love. So Nina, I love that they write this stuff because their mom used to go in their PlayStations. Oh my gosh. Yeah. She's probably talking about the trolls. I love Nina. Kisses. So yeah. Okay. We talked about a lot. I don't even know. I think we covered other topics. See what I mean? Like I told you, like,
we're going to enjoy this a lot.
We're talking about, like, all of the conversation. It's all going to flow together, but I want to kind of like rein it all in and really talk about, Ashley René, where can we find you? What do you have coming out? Let us support you. We're in this community. Welcome. I'm gonna keep an eye on you, see what's going on, and say, like, how can I connect you? How can I refer other people to you? I think you're talking about something that's so prevalent, so relevant, that anybody can connect to this. So take it away.
Oh, thank you. So presenceoverpixels.com is the main website. And I offer personalized digital wellness plans for individuals, as well as for couples and for families. So that's for the person who wants to make a change, not sure how. Everyone's situation is different. It's not a one size fits all. So that's the personalized digital wellness plans. For the one size fits all, there is a self-paced course that I have out right now. And that goes through not just how to get off your phone, but also how the phone keeps us engaged, and the good and the bad of the internet, what big tech uses psychologically, and then that final piece, the connection. So once we get off, how we connect. And then this upcoming year, I'd love, if neither one of those things appeals to anyone, please join the mailing list. I'm trying to lead a movement here. I love humans. I love connection. But I do also love technology. I'm not a Luddite. I believe that technology is a great tool, but we have to be in charge of it. So even if you sign up for the mailing list next year, they're rolling out a product called Analog Redux, which is a more in-person, tangible thing to teach self-reliance. So if all the networks go down, we are going to be okay. So the kids they know how to write and not just slide. You're talking about earlier.
Yes. And it's true. I mean, my son would always, get on me about, Mom, why are they making me read? Because we did like a boot camp at home, and my mother-in-law is also a reading specialist. So like we have that on our side. But the whole summer I said, Anthony, if you want to get good at reading, you're going to do that well, then we got to practice, and he's reading at a 7th grade reading level and he's in 2nd grade. So, and yes, he's very intelligent, but we also are very like, you need to read, and he consumes like books, like at least 5 books a week. He just consumes it. And he has his imagination so big. And I said, I was like, that's a superpower, babe, and he is going to be a litigator because everything's negotiable for him. Sometimes I need to fact check because I'm like, wow, this kid's going to win an Oscar. It's wild, like, so it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, he's getting it, but he's still developing. He's 7.
Well, that's in that imagination. Like, well, a lot of people also don't realize, I'll say this to try to close, but
yeah,
it is in the silence. It is in the quiet spaces where imagination and innovation happen. And so if we are constantly connected in this digital space, then we're not allowing the quiet to happen in our minds so that we can use our imagination to create and to discover and to reflect and make decisions even. So I love that he is getting into books and reading the thoughts of other people and not just listening to or watching the thoughts, but reading them and creating his own world and his imaginations. That's a beautiful job. Well done, Mom. Because so many kids are not reading nowadays. So
yeah, I mean, and if he does get some Nintendo time, which doesn't get a lot of it, he needs to read an hour before he can get 15 minutes. So that's our kind of ratio there. But anyway, I digress. So I wanted to say thank you so much for joining. So I'm
definitely having me. This has been great.
Yes, this has been amazing. I'm definitely going to be joining your newsletter. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to help us understand why we should stay connected, but with boundaries, and how we can be bored. My son's like, Mom, I'm bored. I'm like, sometimes it's okay to be bored, babe. That's when you get, find out really great ideas. And he's like, well, I don't like to be bored. I'm like, just sit with it. It's okay. And I think as adults, sometimes we, what do we do when we're bored? Squirrel, whatever. I need to be entertained. Everyone's going to say squirrel now. I know it. But squirrel. So I just want to thank you for coming on and taking the time out to really help us understand from a different perspective of how technology is not bad in itself. It's not bad at all. It's, do we abuse something? It's the extremes that really create the issues that we're going to face later on.
Yes. And taking control. We are in control.
Yeah. Love that. Thank you so much. And again, thank you everyone for joining the Connectors Pulse. I would love that we ended with such an amazing guest. This is the last episode for the Connectors Pulse. And I want to thank Jessie and her team, reviting.com. If you are thinking of a podcast, if you are even dabbling with it, please reach out to them. They will essentially take your idea and expand it and help you run with it, but also get your voice heard and reach. Like I said, I got to reach Ashley René. I didn't even know that this was a thing. So if you have just a thought, just get on the phone with her and she will explain everything. Ashley, same. You should definitely connect with Jessie in the new year when this all goes live. Like, you would be amazing. Do you have a podcast?
No, but I want to start one because I want to continue this conversation.
Okay.
My favorite topic.
You need to talk to her. Yes, absolutely. 100%. I would be a subscriber in 10 seconds. So, but I just wanted to say thank you so much. Bottom of my heart. Y'all have been amazing. And I can't wait to see what's in the future for you. And I'll be following.
Same. Thank you so much.
Bye.